You know, the Sherks love Connecticut water. It's no secret, have for many years. We live out in the country and we have that ironclad well water. Well, we treat all of our water with a Connecticut whole home water treatment system. And we also use Connecticut's K5 drinking water system. That buildup, that white buildup you get around faucets, nope, we've got none of that. Our dishes are clean. Katie loves what Connecticut water does for her hair and skin, and the boys drink water out of the K5 system all day long. The best part to me, the well water taste and foul smell, they are gone. So call Connecticut like we did and look forward to clean, safe water. Well, it's a little bit like watching a never-ending game of tennis. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Hey, everybody. Bill Sherck, the man about the woods. Welcome to the Minnesota Bound podcast, the stories behind the stories. And one that is so dear to my heart right now and has been for a while is the proposed mine up on the southern edge of the Boundary Waters. And, you know, sometime back we tackled the proposed project as a Minnesota Bound special. And at the end of that episode, I said, look, the process is going to play out for years. And every week you could put some sort of headline in the newspaper of this lawsuit, that argument, this and that in the process. But really, it's going to take a decade to figure this thing out. So here we are today. There is finally a little bit of news regarding the proposed mine. And I wanted to have a friend and guest who is probably as close to this debate as anyone on the planet. Steve Piragis, an iconic name in the world of Ely and also the Boundary Waters outfitting business. Steve, how the heck are you?
I'm doing good, Bill. Thanks for having me.
What's your weather doing in Ely right now?
Well, I'm looking out the window. It's starting to snow again. So it seems like we get a little scud comes through about every 15 minutes. This one's supposed to last for a few hours. So we're looking forward to another 2 or 3 inches of snow today.
'Tis the season, and in some sick way, it's part of the reason you live there.
It is the reason we live here. Yeah. I mean, we love Ely. We love the town. We love all of our friends who are here, but we came and we stayed because of this environment. And winter, spring, summer, or fall, it's always interesting. We're luckily, we live on a little river, Burnside River, that stays open in the winter, so I can even go paddle my sit-on-top kayak this afternoon. How's that?
It's not normal, but I love it.
Never wanted to be normal, Bill.
No, me neither. I was just wading the Mississippi River 24 hours ago with a couple of guys showing them that you could catch bass in February with spinning reels, and it's just not normal, and it's what we covet. You know, part of the reason, a big reason you live there and we all love that part of the world is the Boundary Waters. And it is this protected piece of the world. Clean water, lots of woods, no roads, no buildings. It is what we picture this world looking like a long time ago. But of course, on the rest of the planet, there is so much development and we need resources. And there happens to be a resource sitting on the far south end of the Boundary Waters, underground copper. And Twin Metals, the mining company, wants to mine those metals. And they want to make it happen because it is a very dense deposit. But folks like us, while having an open mind, say not at the risk of our Boundary Waters. So this debate has been going on for a long, long time. But we finally got some news here in the last couple of weeks that at least for now is substantial. And it has to do with Twin Metals leases. Talk about what's going on there.
Well, sure. Yeah, as you say, that the tennis ball has been going back and forth. We kind of hope the volley is over, but it's what happened in the last couple of weeks is the leases, mineral leases that are held and distributed through the Bureau of Land Management. They own mineral leases, underground leases here in northeast Minnesota. And you normally think of BLM as being out west, but they are active in northeast Minnesota and have been for a century or more. Those leases that had been granted under the Trump administration, given back basically under the Trump administration, have been removed again. So they were taken away from Twin Metals back in 2016 under the Obama administration, regranted, and that's why you call it a tennis match, regranted in 2018 and then taken away again this year under the Biden administration. So, and I think the reason really that they were removed again is because under the Trump administration, the leases were not legally given back. There was a lot of inconsistencies in the way that those people in the BLM and the Interior Department under Trump did business, and they didn't do it the way they were supposed to do it. So they were never really legally granted back. And then just in the last 2 weeks, determination by the solicitor, the assistant solicitor of the Interior, determined that they never should have been given back. So they are now taken away again. And Twin Metals has put in a lot of work to look at this. Unfortunately, it's a geologic unfortunate situation, happenstance, that right next to the boundary waters is a deposit of copper nickel ore, sulfide minerals, but that's the way it is. And they've been there for 1.8 billion years. So we would like to see them stay there for a lot longer, like you said. And once you open Pandora's box, it's hard to put these things back in. So it's impossible, actually. So we're happy that, from my point of view as a business person here in Ely, very happy that the Biden administration again made it more difficult and probably maybe impossible for Twin Metals to start mining sulfide ore minerals. So the volley right now has ended, and the ball is in our court, I guess. And our next step, as part of the campaign to save the boundary waters, is to get permanent protection to bring to the House and to the Senate, the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, a bill that would give permanent protection to the 234,000 acres of land that sits outside the boundary waters that occupies the watershed leading into the boundary waters. So if you're gonna mine sulfide ore, you're going to have to do it somewhere other than in the watershed that leads into the middle of the boundary waters. If this legislation passes, so that's our next step, is to work on getting that through the House, and that'll be, Congresswoman Betty McCollum is the standard bearer for that legislation. It passed once in the House in the last legislative session. It should pass again. And then get it through the Senate and have President Biden sign it so that there's no more question, there's no more volleying. The tennis ball is going to have to find another court.
Yeah, you just take your ball and you go home, and we look at other things. But is that realistic? Do you feel like there's a shot this can happen?
Oh yeah, no, I feel it's. I don't know what the percentages are, but 50-50 or better is my guess, because we've laid the groundwork, I think, for 10 years, almost 10 years of campaigning to get this to happen. These things happen slowly, whether it's in Yellowstone or the Grand Canyon or the Boundary Waters, all wonderful wilderness and recreation areas that should be protected. But eventually, I think the U.S. citizenry, the people of the United States, are willing to protect their most sacred outdoor recreation locations, and we're one of them. I know if you compare us to the Grand Canyon, we don't have as many visitors, but we have just as rare of an environment. There's no place on earth that has the lakes and the rivers and the streams that the Boundary Waters does in 1.1 million acre piece of land. There's nothing like it on the surface of the earth. There's no other place where canoe country is so perfect. So it deserves the same protection that Yellowstone or the Boundary or the Grand Canyon or the Tetons, any of the most iconic of natural resources in this country deserve. And I think we're going to get there. Yes.
The Sherck family enjoys spending a lot of time outside. Hence, we care what goes into our environment. That's why we support propane, the energy for everyone. Did you know that propane produces fewer greenhouse gas emissions than electricity generated on the U.S. grid? Propane's emissions are 43% fewer. That's a lot. Propane is clean, dependable, and affordable. Plus, it's produced right here in the USA. Let's all do our part to reduce emissions from our homes, cabins, and businesses by choosing propane, the right energy right now. To learn more about propane, the energy for everyone, go to propane.com.
Hi there, Ron Shera here for Star Bank. If you're putting your money into mega banks down the street, who knows where that money's being used? Bank locally. Keep your money local with a community bank that actually cares about you, your family, your business, and your goals. Check out the bank we use at Minnesota Bound. Try Minnesota's own Star Bank. You can find them online at starbank.net. When you call Star Bank, you actually hear a real living person answering the phone. Star Bank has 10 convenient locations around Minnesota to serve you and all the mobile banking products that you need to manage your money. Check out all that Star Bank has to offer at starbank.net.
I definitely have an opinion on this. I have tried to listen to both sides because I'm very interested in just understanding and learning. As I understand it, all right, so the parent company of Twin Metals is, probably say it wrong, Antofagasta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they want at this because it is a very rich deposit of ore. It's easy pickings, so to speak. But then the critics say, well, wait a second, get that? But the research shows that on planet Earth, we have enough viable copper we can get to without taking this risk to get us through the next 1,000 years. Do I have that right?
Well, you have it mostly right. It's not a rich deposit, really. It's a very low grade deposit. The mineralization in the ore body itself is 1% or less of usable mineral. So it's copper. There's some nickel. There's some cobalt. There's a little bit of platinum and palladium and gold. All of those elements are present, but in very low concentration. So what that means is it's economically questionable whether it's mineable at this point or not. It's not easy pickings. It's actually quite marginal pickings. Okay. And the company has done, they've done their research. They know what the ore body looks like. If you go down into the earth on an angle, you'd kind of look like you'd be seeing layers of lenses of deposit, and then no deposit, another lens of deposit and no deposit. So this was a mineralization that was brought up during a mountain building era a long time ago, more than 1 billion years ago, and solidified into the crust. And now as that mountain range, the Laurentian Mountains that used to exist here, by the way, yes. Minnesota had the Himalayas at one time. They have worn away, and we're now into the roots of those mountains. And what we have for topography today is really the roots of an old mountain range. And in the roots of those mountains are these minerals, and fairly not well defined, but not very concentrated. So the question is, first of all, can you do it economically? But then even if you could, what are the impacts on the surface? What are the impacts on the water? What are the impacts on the land and on the air? And if you look at it rationally, and I have tried to do that, like you said, I've tried to look at both sides. I'm not so sure that people on the other side have really done that. I don't criticize them personally, but I would say if they've looked at it rationally and taken a broad look at sulfide ore mining in the world today, they would have found that it's a difficult proposition to keep from polluting the environment around those mines. In fact, it's never been done.
I was going to say, history shows it's never. That every project of this nature has polluted.
Yeah, especially, they quote a couple of examples that are marginally okay, like the Ladysmith mine in Wisconsin is a tiny little open pit mine that was open for a few years and closed back up. It still pollutes the watershed around it, but to a degree that the DNR of Wisconsin doesn't find that level of pollution to be a problem. It can be mitigated. You can put some calcium chloride or calcium like limestone. You can neutralize and buffer the problem, and because it's such a tiny mine. But you build a big mine anywhere there's a big mine that mines sulfide ores, and this means that the copper, the iron, the nickel, anything that you want out of it is tied to the sulfur atom. And you have to break that bond and get rid of the sulfur. Well, the sulfur is loose and it gets into the environment and it turns into sulfuric acid.
It is a simple chemical reaction.
It's really quite simple, Bill. You're right. There's not a lot of complexity here. These we talk about a mining study, what the pro mining people would like to have happen is have a complete environmental analysis of this mine and the mine plan. And what we have said is that, well, we don't really need that. We know what copper nickel mines do. And even in the most modern of these mines, there's always pollution. There's always problems, even within the first year, sometimes in the first second year. The studies have shown that, you don't have to really look at every single detail of what a copper mine is going to do in order to show that it's going to have problems, because they all have problems. So the Forest Service is now they've reopened the study of the watershed that will eventually show, answer the question basically, is this the proper place to site a sulfide ore copper mine? And that scientific study is the process. That's the designated process under government rules, that's what should happen now. The process of going through a mine plan and doing a complete EIS, that would be the next step. So we don't have to jump to that next step if the first step says, no, yes, this is not the right location. And the Forest Service is doing that study. It was truncated back under Trump. It was Trumpated. Under the Trump administration, they just said, forget it. We don't want to do this study. We don't care what it says. We're just going to give back the leases. So now we're back to following the law. And the law says we have to do this study. And that study should be done this year, should be done hopefully before summer or during summer. And obviously it should say, because really, the writing is on the wall, that it's pretty obvious this is not the right place to site a copper nickel mine. And when that happens, then, that adds further ammunition to the argument that we need to protect this Boundary Waters wilderness permanently through legislative action and a signature by the president. So the process is underway. The dominoes are kind of lining up. If we don't know, we have no crystal ball, but if things go well before there's a change, after the next midterm election, who knows what's going to happen? So we'd like to pass this before the next midterm election at the end of this year. Well, this this plan to pass permanent protection is very important that it happens in the right time.
All right, we need to thank a couple of sponsors, and when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about economics, specifically boom and bust economies.
Okay.
Steve, Piragis is my guest today, proprietor of one of the coolest outfitting businesses in Ely. If you've never been up to see his shop and his canoes and backpacks hanging, it is something to see. I'm Bill Sherck, the man about the woods, and you are listening to the Minnesota Bound podcast, which is brought to you each week by some great sponsors. First up, Hewitt Docks.
Hewitt Docks, Lifts, and Pontoon Legs began in a small south-central Minnesota town with a mission to make dock install and removal easier by inventing the Roll-A-Dock. Well, now the company has evolved to provide everything you might need to improve your lake time. In addition to the classic Roll-A-Dock or the new Ultra Dock system, Hewitt offers all-terrain staircases, gangways, canopies, and lifts, along with any accessory you might need. Celebrate 50 years of business with us. Go to HewittRad.com to enter for a chance to win a free dock and monthly prizes. Hewitt Docks, Lifts, and Pontoon Legs. Work hard, play harder. You deserve a Hewitt.
I'd also like to thank Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Beef. You know, I make a career talking about, we're doing it today, talking about clean water, native habitat, and the best environmental practices. That is exactly why I love to work with Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Beef. It is locally raised beef done differently. Thousand Hills uses what is called regenerative agriculture to raise their cattle. Those beef cows, they graze in fields of wild grasses and then move to a different field of grass. It is a sustainable ecosystem free of synthetic fertilizers and chemical herbicides. It is a system of agriculture that promotes clean water, natural grasses, and yes, the byproduct is the best beef you've tasted. The Sherck family, we love grilling and smoking, and we love doing so with Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Beef. It is beef raised the right way. Check out Thousand Hills to understand their regenerative agricultural practices and fall in love with Thousand Hills beef. All right, Steve Piragis is my guest today. He has outfitted me on Boundary Waters trips in the past. I mean, tens of thousands of people, families, individuals, all kinds of people new and old to the Boundary Waters. And Steve, you have also been one of the big voices in the debate over the proposed mine. And one part of this whole debate that personally I find very intriguing is Ely's economy. It drives me nuts. I'm just going to get up on my soapbox for a second. When I see a sign that says anti-mining, I'm going to tell the world I am not against mining. I'm talking on a headset with a computer that got to my office today in a vehicle that uses some of the very metals we are talking about. I am not against mining. I am purely in favor of doing it the best way we can. And in the case of Ely, mining seems to be all about a boom and bust economy. If this mine were to happen, it's a 20-year deal. The lease is up and then the mine goes away and the people associated with it go away. Talk about what a boom bust economy is, specifically for your little burb.
Well, we've gone through it before. Nancy and I got here in 1975, and we went through the first big bust in about 1982 during a major recession, especially in the mining economy. Taconite mines were closing down left and right for longer periods of time than, just a few weeks, for a year or more. And so there were people out of work. It was a desperate time. I had just started my business. Nancy had a trail foods business at the time, and we weren't dependent on the mining economy. And Ely was, devastated in terms of the year-round economy, because so many people were working in taconite mines at the time. This was, the underground mines, iron ore mines closed in the 60s. So this was taconite era, and taconite mines were in a major recession. So you could buy a house in Ely. Literally, you could buy a house that would sell today for maybe $150,000. These are small Ely houses for $5,000 in the 80s, in the early 80s, and people were desperate to find work. So, and it lasted for a couple of years. It was not just in Ely; it was all over the range. Well, Ely has changed since then. We have become less dependent on mining, and taconite mining employs less people now than it did in the 70s and early 80s. It's become much more automated. And the mining economy is not really a major factor in the Ely economy right now. We kind of associate ourselves more with the Arrowhead and less with the Iron Range. The Iron Range, the core of the Iron Range, Virginia, Minnesota, Eveleth, Chisholm, those towns, it still represents a very small fraction of their total economy, because so much of it is really has been automated, and an underground copper nickel mine would be even more automated and have less actual numbers of human beings working there. So Ely's gone through it. It's characteristic of all mining economies. There are very few prosperous, what you would call pure mining towns. If you go through the West, and I've done this on road trips, seen what happened in Butte, Montana after that mine was closed down. It was a beautiful town of big brick buildings with nothing in them. And, a pit in the ground that's so toxic that if a duck lands on it, he's not likely to be taken off again. Little town in Arizona, Ajo, Arizona, just almost on the Mexican border, down by Oregon Pipe National Monument. A big copper mine closed about 10 years ago. It's been a desperate situation ever since. They had depended on one aspect of their economy, on the mining economy, and they have nothing left. So Ely's very, very, very fortunate. We haven't been dependent on mining. And again, we're not against mining either. In no way am I against mining. Mining is a part of what has to happen in order to solve our climate change issues. And it's also part of everything that we use on a daily basis. And we live a modern lifestyle. We live on products of mining. So we're not against mining. How can you be against mining and live in a modern society? But we're definitely against mines that don't make sense ecologically and in a place like an iconic place like the Boundary Waters. And if you're going to if you're going to be dependent on a mining economy, you're going to go through boom and bust times, and you just got to kind of assume that. Whether that happens, there's no crystal ball. Whether that happens in the next 20 years, it may not. We may have a fairly steady demand for those products of mining as we try to solve the issue of climate change. And there's lots of mining towns around the country, around Canada, around Australia, all allies of ours, who are mining tons and tons of copper and nickel and cobalt, and supplying the demand of the modern green economy without having to sink a mine like that right next to the most, really, it sounds so ridiculous. You put a toxic mine, what the EPA has called the country's most toxic industry, right next to and really within the cleanest water, some of the cleanest water literally in North America. The headwaters of the Kawishwe River is nothing but rain and snow. That's it. There's a little bit of dust that comes out of the air, I guess, but this is the purest water in the world. the fact that geology has left us with a deposit of toxic ore on the edge of the Kawishwe River, right where that pure water flows into the boundary waters, is an unfortunate situation, but it is what it is, and it doesn't have to be mined. The Pandora's box can stay closed, and it'll be there 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. And if, society at that time decides to change the rules, then so be it. But for our lifetimes and maybe for the next 7 generations, let's keep it in the ground and live with an economy that's so sustainable like we have now in the Ely area.
So what about those folks who say, well, wait a second. No. Mining economy, lot more money infused versus outdoor recreation.
Well, that's not true. That's simply not true. My employees are paid well. They have all the benefits that are accrued to professional people, and they live here because they want to. They don't live here because they have to. And they're all well-educated, sophisticated individuals who make a good living. And I think if you look around the area, there aren't as many employers who employ as many as we do, but there are literally hundreds of entrepreneurial families who are making livings as canoe outfitters, as resort owners, as dog sled businesses, and that economy keeps growing. And those people are happy and satisfied and making a livable, reasonably good living, working with recreation, working with nature, working with the products of this beautiful environment that was left to us, and why not keep it clean, keep it unique and separate from the rest of the world? People aren't coming here to support our economy because they want to see a 6,000 acre industrial complex. They're not coming here to see a mountain of tailings, or to experience the noise of an underground mine, or to paddle someplace within earshot of drilling and blasting. So we got to protect what we got. I got to protect my business in any way I can. I don't think anybody blames me, no matter what they think. They're trying to protect my business and my employees and my family. Just like there's an opposite point of view, and I don't blame them either. If you really want to, really want to work in a copper mine, I don't blame you for supporting the idea of a copper mine here. I just think, somebody's got to make this determination, and it's going to have to be, it's a federal issue. It's going to have to be a federal determination. It's America's wilderness. It's not just Ely's wilderness or the Iron Range wilderness.
My 13-year-old proud father moment, I'm going to brag. He just got an A in social studies for the year. And his big project, a little bit unbeknownst to me, was writing about the birth of the boundary waters and the protection of the Superior National Forest and how that all happened. There were a lot of people who put in a lot of time and effort and had a vision for parts of our country that need to be protected forever. Perpetuity. And the Boundary Waters is one of those places. If you've been there, it's probably a little bit easier to understand. If you haven't been there, you need to go. And if you don't know how to, I know a guy. But
We're happy to help.
But to sit on a rock on the edge of the water and feel like you are the only person on planet Earth is life-changing. It was for me a long, long time ago. That has never changed. The sensation is the same every time I go, and that's enough for me. That's all I got.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Bill.
Feeling like you are the only person on the planet when you sit in the Boundary Waters is part of the sensation. So that's my challenge to people. If you don't buy it or you haven't tried it, I dare you. So there you go. Steve, thanks so much for taking the time. It is fun to catch up. Don't forget, you need a snow shovel. You're going to be shoveling tomorrow. There's more snow coming. And I'll be up in just a few days, and I'll be able to help shovel if there's anything left.
Well, the wind is out of the east, and the air is full of snow right now. So it's winter in the North Woods, and we cherish it all.
I love it. Keep up the good work, and hope to see you real soon.
Thank you so much. Take care now.
All right, Steve Piragis, Piragis Outfitters. Not only do they have some of the best canoes and packs and guides in the Boundary Waters, but I hate to say it, their stickers are amazing. It's all over my gear, all over my coffee mugs, polk sled, everything else. So there you go. That's the story on the Boundary Waters. I am Bill Sherck, the man about the woods. Thank you so much for listening to the Minnesota Bound podcast, the stories behind the stories. Hey, before we go, I want to thank the folks who helped make this podcast happen. Of course, the Minnesota Bound podcast is presented by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems. Also, Hewitt Docks, Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Beef, Star Bank, and the Minnesota Propane Association. We'll see you back here real soon. And in the meantime, don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors.